दिक्कत नहीं होने क्या, जरूरत भी नहीं है वैसे तो, जरूरत नहीं है। आप लोगों को आवाज आ रही है ऐसे मेरी? हाँ, शुरू करें? लाइव हो गया? मेरे को तो दिख नहीं रहा है यहाँ पे। ओके, हेलो एवरीवन, वेरी गुड इवनिंग। So today the paper has been concluded, and some of you might have seen the paper also. So before discussing the paper one, I have not seen the paper two yet and just gone through it. एक थोड़ा सा glance लिया है, पूरे ढंग से analyze नहीं किया. But based on my analysis of paper one, some key takeaways that I want to talk about. The first key takeaway from this is that paper overall was relatively easy to moderate, खास करके पेपर वन. ओके, पेपर टू बेसिकली जो मैंने एक ग्लांस लिया है उसके बेसिस पे व्हाट आई कैन से इज पेपर टू वाज रिलेटिवली मॉडरेट टू some questions being relatively difficult, what I would say. Okay, but paper 2 was very easy, मतलब आराम से किया जाने वाला पेपर था. Okay, second, what I have understood is paper 1 और paper 2 में the questions that were to be done, they were direct questions. मतलब पेपर 1 में तो ऑलमोस्ट सारे क्वेश्चंस डायरेक्ट थे, बट पेपर 2 में when I'm saying that कि क्वेश्चन वाज रिलेटिवली मॉडरेट टुवर्ड्स डिफिकल्ट, तो वहां पे आपके जो मॉडरेट क्वेश्चन थे, जो डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन थे, दैट वर इनफ टू डू ऑल द क्वेश्चन. 250 नंबर आराम से हो सकते थे, एक्सेप्शन एक या दो सवाल जो 10 मार्कर में कंपल्सरली आ गए थे, एंड दैट इज यूजुअली नॉट डिस्कस्ड दैट मच इन रेगुलर क्लासेस. तो दैट इज द सेकेंड टेक अवे दैट आई हैव. द थर्ड in paper 1 specifically is theory and archaeology along with genetics. These three topics dominated the entire paper. So आप पूरे पेपर में देखोगे 95 मार्क्स के क्वेश्चन डायरेक्टली थ्योरी से आए हैं. ओके, आउट ऑफ 400 मार्क्स क्वेश्चंस इन पेपर 1, 1/4 is directly from one single unit, theories. Okay, and that too the questions on theories, they were not direct. Okay, they have started to ask pinpointed questions on theories. Say Derrida के बारे में पूछ लिया, deconstruction, then Asdival myth के बारे में पूछ लिया directly, मतलब rather than asking structural analysis of myth, they asked a particular analysis of a myth. Okay, so they are going deeper into the theories, and that is very good thing. I'm very much happy for this, because they are now actually exploring that aspect of anthropology which is usually अभी तक हम देखते नहीं थे. मतलब अब PYQ से बेसिकली क्वेश्चन बैंक पढ़ के लोग सॉल्व कर रहे थे, बट विदाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग दीज काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस कैन नॉट बी डन. ओके, देन आर्कियोलॉजी स्ट्रेट अवे क्वेश्चंस, एंड देन जेनेटिक्स. अगर ये तीन चीजें आप करके जाते, दैट इज यूनिट 9, यूनिट 1 ऑफ पेपर 1 एंड यूनिट 6, तो आई वुड सजेस्ट कि आउट ऑफ 400 मार्क्स, मोर देन 300 मार्क्स ऑफ द क्वेश्चंस वेर फ्रॉम दीज 3 यूनिट्स ओनली. ओके, पूरा सोशो कल्चरल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी को जैसे कि रिलीजन पूरा इग्नोर कर दिया, इकोनॉमिक एंथ्रोपोलॉजी ऑलमोस्ट नथिंग. ओके, अब एक क्वेश्चन कुला है, अब आप उसको इकोनॉमिक एंथ्रोपोलॉजी में डाल दो या फिर बेसिकली थियरीज में डाल दो, वट एवर यू डू. ओके, पॉलिटिकल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी सिंगल क्वेश्चन. ओके, मैरिज, फैमिली, किनशिप, फैमिली पे बस एक सवाल, किनशिप, मैरिज, नथिंग ऑफ दैट सॉर्ट. ओके, सो दिस इज द केस. देन the fourth key takeaway is again the domination of PYQs. Okay, they सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि सब कुछ के बाद PYQ is the king. Okay, and if you have done PYQs 5 से 6 साल का, 7 साल का, तो nobody would have felt any kind of problem in either paper 1 or paper 2 also. Last 5 to 7 years of the questions almost directly indirectly ये questions repeated हैं. Okay, paper 2 में some of the out of the box question, but tribals में nothing can come out of the box. They might reframe it, but आपके पास अगर आपने 5-7 साल के सवाल किए हुए हैं तो they can easily be answered with the available content. Okay, and that's why PYQ again has proved its dominance, and there is nothing better, no test series, no anything cannot match the quality of PYQs. तो कोई भी टेस्ट सीरीज ज्वाइन करने से पहले if you have not covered PYQ तो आप समझ लो कि वो टेस्ट सीरीज का कोई फायदा नहीं होने वाला. ओके, एंड टेस्ट सीरीज से कंटेंट बिल्ड नहीं होता है, कंटेंट आप PYQ सॉल्व करके ही बिल्ड करोगे. So just make sure that you solve at least 5 to 7 years of PYQ before joining any other program, because that is the basic fundamental that has to be done. Okay, so and the last, तो थोड़ा बहुत अगर मैं आया हूं तो मैं प्रमोट कर ही देता हूं कि मेरी टेस्ट सीरीज से काफी क्वेश्चन मैच करके. Okay, so that is what I wanted to convey, the key takeaways from this. Okay, now let's see. एक questions I'll just discuss one each of the questions and just give you a brief overview of what has to be written. Some pointers, I'll not be explaining it but just giving you a brief pointers. Okay, for example, the first question, attributes of culture. So the question is attributes of culture. Now here सीधे कल्चर की डेफिनेशन लिखनी है, कोई भी एक डेफिनेशन, प्रेफरेबली बाय E.B. टाइलर, कॉम्प्लेक्स होल कंसिस्टिंग ऑफ नॉलेज, बिलीफ, कस्टम, मॉरल, आर्ट एंड लॉ और एनी अदर कैपेबिलिटी लर्न्ड बाय इंडिविजुअल बाय बीइंग ए मेंबर ऑफ सोसाइटी. सिंपली ए डेफिनेशन, एंड देन you can mention some of the attributes or some basic characteristics like culture being an integrated whole. Then culture basically is adaptive and maladaptive, overt and covert, has ethos and eidos, that is emotional aspect and say the outside aspect. Then the organic and superorganic. Then you can also mention that culture is learnt, culture is symbolic in nature. Okay, and these are the major attributes. एक थोड़ा थोड़ा बता के आप हर पॉइंटर पे एक स्कॉलर ऐड कर सकते थे. एंड दिस इज ए लाइक मार्क्स ऑन द प्लैटर कि आपको सवाल दिया हुआ है एंड आपको प्लैटर पे नंबर मिल रहा है. ओके, सो देन यू कैन गिव ए कंक्लूजन simply कि the attributes of the culture suggest that that culture engrosses us in all the aspects of life and actually plays a very important role in transforming us from human being to being human. Okay, so something like this, and that's it for the question, attributes of culture. Then the next question, Harappan maritime trade. From last 4-5 years, अगर आपने PYQ किया है तो from last 4-5 years every year one question from Harappa is being asked. They started from asking Aryan invasion theory and eventually they have now moved to Harappan civilization. In fact, this trend is very similar to the political changes in the government. आप देखोगे कि they will be asking, अभी नई NCERT आई, they changed the name of Harappan civilization to Saraswati Sindhu सभ्यता compared to Indus Valley से चेंज कर दिया गया. ओके, नाउ डिस्कवरी ऑफ राखी गढ़ी, दे हैव आस्क्ड अ क्वेश्चन ऑन राखी गढ़ी पेपर 2 में, दे हैव आस्क्ड अ क्वेश्चन ऑन राखी गढ़ी, धोलावीरा एंड ऑल, वो GS में भी पूछ रहे हैं एंड यहाँ पे भी. एंड हरप्पन सिविलाइजेशन इज द हॉट टॉपिक. यू शुड बी कवरिंग ईच ऑफ दिस साइट्स इन वेरी मच डिटेल, खास करके द न्यू साइट्स दैट आर बीइंग डिस्कवर्ड इन इंडिया, खास करके राखी गढ़ी, धोलावीरा एंड दिस सिन्हौली. ओके, सो दीज आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट साइट्स फ्यूचर के लिए भी. इफ दे आर नॉट आस्किंग धोलावीरा एंड सिन्हौली इस साल, नेक्स्ट ईयर देयर इज अ हाई प्रोबेबिलिटी दैट दे विल बी आस्किंग. ओके, सो हरप्पन मैरीटाइम. नाउ हरप्पन मैरीटाइम बेसिकली यहाँ इट्स ए वेरी ओपन एंड क्वेश्चन. ओके, तो आप क्या बता सकते हो कि एविडेंसेस क्या है हरप्पन मैरीटाइम के. सो वी हैव द एविडेंस ऑफ पोर्ट सिटी लोथल. ओके, देन धोलावीरा. नाउ these are two different types of maritime. One is sea based or coastal maritime and the second is riverine maritime. धोलावीरा में riverine structures हैं, ये इंटर स्टेट या से बेसिकली इंटरनेशनल काइंड ऑफ नहीं था. ओके, नाउ व्हाट काइंड ऑफ एविडेंसेस वी हैव विथ कॉन्टैक्ट विथ अदर सोसाइटीज. तो आपके पास मेसोपोटामिया के कई सारे एविडेंसेस हैं. ओके, फॉर एग्जाम्पल हमारे यहाँ पे तो आर्कियोलॉजिकल एविडेंसेस मिले हैं हरप्पन सिविलाइजेशन में मैरीटाइम ट्रेड के, बट मेसोपोटामिया में वी हैव आर्कियोलॉजिकल एज वेल एज लिटरेरी एविडेंसेस. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल लैंड ऑफ मेलुहा कहा जाता था इंडिया को. ओके, और इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन को. So moreover we have got several seals, moreover कई सारे literary evidences in Mesopotamian civilization talks about Indus Valley civilization. Okay, then we also have evidences from Oman. So Oman में जो evidences मिले हैं maritime trade के, that were of a specific kind. ये बताता है कि शायद यहाँ से लोग कुछ वहां जाके settle हुए. And because what we are finding is not the goods from Indus Valley civilization, but we found weights, we found measures, okay, जो Indus Valley civilization में use किए जाते थे. Plus several kinds of seals they have been discovered in both Mesopotamia and Oman. So that you can mention. Then kind of goods that were being traded there. So you'll find that कि India सबसे ज़्यादा export क्या करता था, और Indus Valley civilization, sorry. So it was exporting carnelian beads. That was the most important export, and in turn was importing some kind of metal goods. Okay, अब carnelian beads they are considered to be very luxurious item. ये हमें कैसे पता चला इस ट्रेड में? बेसिकली मेसोपोटामिया में जो एलिट्स थे उनकी ग्रेव्स में आपको इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन के गुड्स मिले. ओके, एंड स्पेसिफिकली कार्नेलियन बीड्स एंड वेरियस अदर बीड्स मेड आउट ऑफ प्रेशियस आइटम्स फाउंड इन इंडिया. So that suggests that these goods were luxurious goods that were not for the commoners but mainly for the elite class in these kind of civilization. Okay, then you can also talk about that whether the trade, ये एक debate है that is related to maritime trade. So that is whether the trade was direct or indirect. मतलब अभी इसके ऊपर debate चल रही है कि that हम लोग directly in civilization से trade कर रहे थे, or we were actually going to some place and then we were going to some other place. Connected trade था. So we have evidences of both, that is direct trade भी कर रहे थे, at the same time indirect trade. So for example several Mesopotamian literature talk about a translator of Indian language या Indus Valley की language का जो मेसोपोटामिया में एग्जिस्ट करता था. That shows that कि direct trade भी हो रहा था. And उसके बाद कई सारे ऐसे evidences हैं कि that the route of trade was not direct but rather mainly आप एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाके and then finally trade करते थे. उसके बाद बोट मेकिंग को लेके भी कई सारे क्वेश्चन के, do we have that capability at that point of time to create boats that would be useful for maritime trade, मतलब सी में जा सकते थे या नहीं जा सकते थे. तो अभी जो हमें सील्स पे जो बोट्स के एग्जांपल मिले हैं, they are very similar to the boats that are there in the Indus River. And they do not have the capacity to go for direct sea trade, मतलब इतनी बोट की कैपेसिटी नहीं है. तो कुछ लोग बोलते हैं कि शायद ये कोस्टल ट्रेड था, कि मतलब लैंड बाय, मतलब जो कोस्ट के अराउंड ट्रैवल करते करते बोट जाती थी. और कुछ लोग बोलते हैं नहीं, शायद इनको मॉनसून का आइडिया था, एंड मॉनसून आइडिया था तो दैट्स व्हाई दे डू नॉट नीड टू गो बाय कोस्ट, क्योंकि बहुत लंबा और इनएफिशिएंट वे होगा, बट दे कैन गो बाय डायरेक्टली सी में, मिड सी से, विंड के डायरेक्शन से बेसिकली दे कैन ट्रैवल टू द लैंड दैट दे वांटेड टू ट्रैवल. Okay, so these are some of the issues that are there, and शायद maybe ये explore करना चाहता था examiner with respect to history of maritime trade in Harappan civilization. Okay, then the third question, critical analysis of joking and avoidance relation. So now ये directly हम लोग structure functionism में we look at it. So what is avoidance? That two kin groups, आप इसको intro ऐसे कर सकते थे, these are the kinship behaviors highlighted by Radcliffe Brown in his theory of structure functionism to avoid any kind of tensions between kin groups or say relatives. Okay, so that's a structure functions point of view से Radcliffe Brown ने इसको analyze किया. You can say that कि avoidance usually exists between kins of two different generations. Okay, and India का contemporary example आप घूंघट बता सकते हो कि that is a case of avoidance. Then the second is joking that usually exists between kins of the same generation. Okay, so जीजा साली का जो basically flirt और इस type का relation है, that is the joking case. Now this is the idea of structure functionism that can be explained here, and then later on you can give alternatives. For example, Tyler, he gave a perspective that avoidance is mainly because of the early matrilineal societies that used to exist, and man was basically a stranger in the house of the female. मतलब matrilineal और matrilocal society थी, शादी के बाद आदमी अपनी wife के साथ रहता था, and he was considered to be a stranger, and that's why the practice of avoidance was there. That means the man avoids his mother-in-law, avoids his father-in-law. Okay, and avoidance और टेक्नोनाइमी इसने इसी के बेसिस पे बताया है कि मैन को नाम भी नहीं दिया गया, उसको चाइल्ड के नाम से बुलाया जाता था. Okay, and then Lowy, he talks about avoidance and joking, saying that ki these are the ways of say expression of patriarchy or the male dominance. For example, he says that ki the societies have a belief that patriarchal societies, that somebody who has come from different culture, they might corrupt them. Okay, because the girl has come from a different culture and she might corrupt the people by his own culture. So that's by her own culture, and that's why there is a practice of avoidance. Why? कि अब husband तो corrupt हो ही जाएगा, but rest of the family members should avoid that girl who is an outsider, who is a stranger, and that's how it's a reflection of patriarchy or the male dominance. Okay, that is what Lowy has suggested. So these are some of the perspective that can be written to talk about the avoidance and joking relationship. Okay. Next one, lethal and sublethal genes. Direct straightforward question. Define what is lethal. That those genes, the presence of which can cause the death of the individual. नाम से ही समझ में आ रहा है lethal genes. And then there can be, you can talk about the types of lethal gene. The dominant lethal gene, the recessive lethal gene, conditional lethal, gametic lethal. Okay, direct सवाल है, direct topic से पूछा गया है. And then sublethal genes, those genes which do not cause the death of everyone but majority of the ones who carries it. Okay, and then you can give example. And then इससे भी ज्यादा जब ये direct question 10 marker में पूछा जा रहा है तो they do not want to know the genetics of lethal gene, they also want to know the anthropological significance. So कुछ significance आप लिखो कि why this concept is anthropologically relevant. So maybe to study the evolutionary aspect of mankind, ki how these genes despite being lethal are still prevailing in the population. Okay, so इस तरीके से आप sickle cell का example बता सकते हो. Okay, then you can also talk about कि it can also be used for study of migration, कि how certain population got to have some kind of lethal genes जो शायद वहाँ पे originate ना हुई हो. Okay, जैसे कि ओडिशा के tribes हैं, it actually shows that कि there has been a migration from Africa and that's why sickle cell genes have traveled to that. तो आप देखोगे कि एक तो रीजन सिकल सेल जीन का मलेरिया है जिसकी वजह से ओरिजिनेट हुआ, बट ओडिशा में इट इज सेड दैट कि द ट्राइबल्स डिड नॉट डेवलप दिस बट रादर दे हैव ए हिस्ट्री फ्रॉम ऑफ माइग्रेशन फ्रॉम अफ्रीका एंड दैट्स व्हाई देयर इज प्रेजेंस ऑफ सिकल सेल जीन्स देयर. ओके, आप लोग फाउंडेशन आप लोगों को ये सब अभी नहीं पढ़ाया है तो विल डिस्कस दिस लेटर ऑन. एंड देन इट कैन ऑल्सो टॉक अबाउट पॉपुलेशन जेनेटिक्स. ठीक है कि प्रेजेंस उसकी फ्रीक्वेंसी क्या है इन डिफरेंट पॉपुलेशंस. ओके, एंड इट कैन ऑल्सो इस पॉपुलेशन जेनेटिक्स से यू कैन आइडेंटिफाई द जेनेटिक हेल्थ ऑफ ए पॉपुलेशन. यू कैन ऑल्सो टॉक अबाउट द जेनेटिक लोड, माइट हेल्प इन डिजाइनिंग द प्रोग्राम्स, माइट हेल्प इन से. तो अभी जो आप देखोगे कि गवर्नमेंट की स्कीम आई है बजट में, उन्होंने सैंक्शन भी किया है टू रिमूव द हीमोग्लोबिनोपैथीज. वन ऑफ द हीमोग्लोबिनोपैथीज इज सिकल सेल. सो that is a part of lethal gene, recessive lethal hai wo. Okay, so this is what you have to write in this answer. Okay, next one, hemoglobin in health and disease. मतलब एग्जाम बनाने वाले ने एकदम दिमाग नहीं लगाया कि एकदम सेम टाइप के क्वेश्चन बैक टू बैक लिख दिए, lethal and sublethal genes, and उसके बाद the case of hemoglobin in health and disease. So you can talk about that hemoglobin is a protein present on the blood surface, red blood cells, and इसका काम क्या होता है, बेसिकली ऑक्सीजन ट्रांसपोर्ट का काम है इसका, and it has 4 chains. Okay, 2 alpha 2 beta chains. Okay, अब हेल्थ क्या, बेसिकली हीमोग्लोबिन ऑक्सीजन ट्रांसपोर्ट का काम करे, अगर वो एफिशिएंटली करेगा तो देन द बॉडी फंक्शंस प्रॉपर्ली, ऑर्गन्स गेट द ऑक्सीजन प्रॉपर्ली, एंड इफ नॉट देन देयर कैन बी अ कंडीशन ऑफ व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एज हाइपोक्सिया, जिसकी वजह से ऑक्सीजन का जो सर्कुलेशन इट इज लो एंड कई सारे जो ऑर्गन्स हैं दे माइट स्टार्ट डिटोरिएटिंग. ओके, एंड देन यू कैन टॉक अबाउट सम काइंड ऑफ डिजीजेस रिलेटेड टू हीमोग्लोबिन. वन ऑफ देम इज वेरी कॉमन, हीमोग्लोबिन सिकल सेल. ओके, सो सिकल सेल इज अ डिजीज जिसकी वजह से तो आप HbS. देन यू कैन ऑल्सो टॉक अबाउट अदर डिजीज लाइक थैलेसीमिया. सो अल्फा थैलेसीमिया, बीटा थैलेसीमिया, अल्फा थैलेसीमिया जहां पे मतलब अल्फा चेन ढंग से प्रोड्यूस नहीं हो रही हैं, बीटा थैलेसीमिया व्हेन बीटा चेन्स आर नॉट बीइंग प्रोड्यूस इन द बॉडी प्रॉपर्ली एंड जिसकी वजह से हीमोग्लोबिन्स में प्रॉब्लम आ जाएगी। देन कुछ एग्जांपल बता सकते हो कि इंडिया में जेनेटिक स्क्रीनिंग रिलेटेड टू थैलेसीमिया इज ऑन ए वेरी मतलब लार्ज स्केल पे चल रहा है। गुजरात मॉडल इज द आइडियल मॉडल जिसके बेसिस पे इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने थैलेसीमिया को कंट्रोल करने के लिए नेशनल प्रोजेक्ट बनाया है मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ हेल्थ ने। नाउ इट ऑल स्टार्टेड विद गुजरात मॉडल कि गुजरात में लार्ज स्केल स्क्रीनिंग हुई एंड देन 3 लाख केसेस ऑफ थैलेसीमिया वर प्रिवेंटेड बाय द इनिशिएटिव बाय गुजरात गवर्नमेंट। ओके, सो some kind of examples like this and more than enough. Then the question second A, historical particularism as a critical development to classical evolutionism. Okay, so straightforward question. So you can begin with the definition of historical particularism, that every culture is a result of unique historical experiences, okay, and hence cannot be compared with each other. Now you can mention that it was given by Franz Boas, and who wrote an article, Limitation of Comparative Method of Anthropology, okay, in which he criticized evolutionists and says that कि 3 major flaws हैं उनके अप्रोच में। फर्स्ट इज अंडरस्टैंडिंग इन यूनिलीनियर एवोल्यूशन, सेकेंड कंसिडरिंग मॉडर्न सोसाइटीज एज सर्वाइवल्स, एंड द थर्ड कैटेगराइजेशन और क्लासिफिकेशन बेस्ड ऑन insufficient evidences. So that is he suggested, and based on this he suggested that कि देखो जो Morgan and Tyler they can be correct while talking about the technological advancement. Definitely the slingshot would have come first before the gun, or say the barrel gun would have come first before the automatic guns would have come. यहाँ पे आप clearly बता सकते हो that there is a progress and there is a chronological order, but to say that every society passes through matrilineal and then moves towards patrilineal, it's a flawed understanding. In fact, in the study of Quacute, he says that the opposite has happened, that the society was patrilineal and has moved towards matrilineal, and here he basically countered the idea of evolutionism. Okay, so then what he suggested, कि every society is unique and cannot and has a unique history and hence cannot be compared with each other, and that's why comparison गलत है, and based on this he suggested that कि rank करना एक society को एक से ऊपर superior progressive, it's wrong. Rather what we should do is follow relativism, and यहाँ पे भी उन्होंने counter किया कि कोई ranking नहीं, कोई hierarchy नहीं, कोई sequence नहीं, but every society is unique and has to be understood in its own cultural context, and that's why relativism is the approach. And then the next thing that he suggested कि भाई कोई grand narrative बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है, there is no rush to make theories. The theories, if it exists, it will come automatically. The approach should be to collect as much data as possible and as soon as possible, and if there exists any theory, it will automatically come out of that data. Okay, so this is what he suggested, and then this approach was there, and then you can mention the criticism of this approach. Long and time taking anti-theoretical trend लेके आ गया anthropology में, and then any kind of research done before, done without any preliminary theory will be fruitless in nature, and that is the approach that we can mention. The next question is basically a question related to मेहरगढ़. Now this is a question directly हमारी टेस्ट सीरीज में से as it is मैंने दिया था और ये as it is repeat हो गया. So मेहरगढ़ के ऊपर अब ये इतना कॉमन सेंसिकल क्वेश्चन है कि आपको बस मेहरगढ़ की लोकेशन पता होनी चाहिए थी. That if you know the location of मेहरगढ़, so the question is कि evidences of food production and domestication of animals with respect to मेहरगढ़. Now कोई भी सिविलाइजेशन के बारे में अगर पूछ रहा है कि मेहरगढ़ या कोई भी XYZ यहाँ पे डोमेस्टिकेशन ऑफ एनिमल्स है, तो आपके पास क्या एविडेंसेस होंगे? बोन्स ऑफ एनिमल्स, ठीक है, और बोन्स में भी आपको क्या एविडेंस मिलेगा कि अगर आपने कोई वाइल्ड एनिमल होंगे और कोई डोमेस्टिकेटेड एनिमल है, उनके बोन्स में डिफरेंस होगा। वाइल्ड एनिमल के बोन्स अगर मिलेंगे तो यूजुअली दे विल बी विदाउट एनी मार्क, या फिर अगर किल किया होगा तो उसको बेसिकली छोटे छोटे हिस्सों में तोड़ा होगा उस बोन को। बट डोमेस्टिकेटेड एनिमल्स यू विल फाइंड दैट द बोन्स आर रिलेटिवली सेफ, और उस तरीके से थोड़े पतले बोन्स होंगे, उतने ज्यादा स्ट्रेस वाले बोन्स नहीं होंगे। एंड देन आपको बोन्स के साथ साथ बरियल भी मिला है। सो दीज एनिमल्स वेर buried properly. So अगर wild animals, do they get the burials? No, definitely not. But domesticated animals, because we have some kind of bond with them, तो burials हैं. Then dental analysis. So these animals, they had this dental wear and tear which was very similar to जो डोमेस्टिक डाइट्स खाते हैं। अगर आप देखोगे कि जो वाइल्ड एनिमल है उनके वेयर एंड टियर डिफरेंट होंगे, बिकॉज दे आर हंटिंग, दे आर देन टियरिंग से द डाइट। एंड डोमेस्टिक एनिमल्स हैं तो वहां पे आपको कुक्ड फूड मिल रहा होगा, सॉफ्टर फूड मिल रहा होगा, एंड दैट्स व्हाई द वेयर एंड टियर विल बी वेरी मच डिफरेंट इन केस ऑफ डोमेस्टिकेटेड एनिमल्स। देन फूड प्रोडक्शन, फूड प्रोडक्शन के लिए क्या एविडेंसेस मिल सकते हैं? आपको क्रॉप रिमेन्स मिल जाएंगे। देन फूड प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हो तो स्टोर भी करोगे, तो देर आर एविडेंसेस ऑफ ग्रैनरीज दैट आर देयर। ओके, देन ऑल्सो एविडेंसेस ऑफ सेटल्ड लाइफस्टाइल, दैट इज ए केस ऑफ जब भी फूड प्रोडक्शन होगा तो यू आर प्रोड्यूसिंग ए फूड एट सम प्लेस, तो आप मूव तो नहीं कर सकते, यू कैन नॉट लिव इन नोमैडिक लाइफ। तो वेरेवर द फूड प्रोडक्शन विल हैपन यू विल हैव एविडेंसेस ऑफ सेटल्ड लाइफ। आपको हाउसेस मिलेंगे, क्लस्टर ऑफ हाउसेस मिलेंगे। फूड प्रोडक्शन का एक और एविडेंस है, दैट इज हीप्स ऑफ एक्सक्रीटा, बिकॉज वेरेवर ए ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल लिव परमानेंटली यू विल फाइंड दैट एक्सक्रीटा हीप्स आर क्रिएटेड देयर। ओके, स्टैग्नेंट वाटर का सोर्स आपको मिलेगा। देन इरिगेटेड कैनाल्स के सोर्सेज आपको मिलेंगे। इट इज समथिंग जो आपको लिखना भी है, एंड दिस इज समथिंग दैट यू कैन डिराइव फ्रॉम कॉमन सोर्स, कॉमन सेंस ऑल्सो, कि फूड प्रोडक्शन है तो यही सब तो मिलेगा वहां पे। ओके, सो दैट इज द केस ऑफ मेहरगढ़। Then the next question, lifestyle diseases and their impact. So this is a question of demographic transition, ki how diseases have changed as we have, as the culture changes. Okay, so ये last phase of disease के बारे में पूछ रहा है, that is the modern phase in which the diseases which are actually happening because of change in the lifestyle. So all the disease which are related to the culture, way of life of the people, they are called as lifestyle diseases. Okay, and they are impacted by mainly the change of diet, change of physical activities, then the change of longevity, then work-life balance, smoking alcohol, and the last psychological factors like stress and strain, and the last one, last one is socio-economic inequality. So these are the lifestyle factors, and this is how the lifestyle diseases will come up. You can mention some of the lifestyle diseases like diabetes. अच्छा, एक फैक्टर और है, that is environment, pollution. Okay, so diabetes, then you can mention cardiovascular diseases, then cancer, some of the specific kind of cancer, that's a result of lifestyle only. Okay, so and इसमें से कुछ एग्जाम्पल आप बता सकते हो। फॉर एग्जाम्पल ए केस स्टडी ऑफ चियापास, मेक्सिको। Coca-Cola consumption is very high. Almost an average person drinks more than 200 liters of Coca-Cola every year. That is the average rate of consumption. Almost 0.75 liter a day. हर बंदा उस शहर में Coca-Cola पीता है। Coca-Cola is very significant there, and that's why it has become the diabetes capital of the world. So almost everybody in that city is suffering from diabetes. Then you can talk about heart related diseases rising in India. ओके सो जिस आप लोगों ने सुना होगा कोविड, पोस्ट कोविड आप काफी सारे न्यूज आ रहे हैं कि यंग पीपल आर डाइंग एंड हार्ट रिलेटेड सडन डेथ्स हो जा रही है कार्डियोवैस्कुलर प्रॉब्लम्स की वजह से. सो the major factor one is genetic and then the major factor is these only, that pollution बहुत ज़्यादा high है, smoking and alcohol बहुत ज़्यादा high है, low physical activities, and then finally the diet is the major cause, high consumption of sugar, high consumption of salt, high consumption of oil and adulterated food. Okay, so these are the major factors. Then कुछ एक दो एग्जाम्पल जो हमने बताए वो we can discuss it. The next question that is karyotype and its significance. So karyotype क्या है? You can mention that karyotype is nothing but the image of the chromosomes present in a cell. Now these chromosomes are arranged in decreasing order of the height and उसके basis पे उनको decreasing order of the size and उसके basis पे उनको number दे दिया जाता है. That is chromosome number 1 being the biggest one and that's why the number 1. And then gradually decrease करता हुआ and then the chromosome Y is the smallest of all the chromosomes. Okay, so that is the 23 pairs of chromosomes, they are arranged and their photographs are created. Okay, now why it is used karyotypic analysis? Basically to understand the chromosomal structure of human cell और इससे आपको aberrations के बारे में पता चल जाएगा. So if it is numerical, the chromosome numbers will increase or decrease. If it is structural, the chromosome size may increase or decrease. You can talk about different types of numerical aberrations, maybe monoploidy, triploidy, sorry, monosomy, trisomy. Monoploidies do not exist, or tetrasomy. Okay, and then structural aberrations may be because of deletion, duplication, inversions. You can identify, and यहाँ पे आप बता सकते हो कि कैसे आप structural aberration को study करते हो. That is by using banding techniques, using some different kinds of colors, shades, hue banding, R banding. So some different kinds of bands that we use to identify the structural aberrations. So कुछ एक दो examples of some chromosomal aberrations, Turner syndrome, Down syndrome, जहाँ पे आप बता सकते हो कि इसमें एक क्रोमोसोम कम होगा, एक क्रोमोसोम ज्यादा होगा, Klinefelter syndrome, and then you can also mention some of the examples of the structural aberrations that you can identify from karyotypic analysis. Okay, और karyotypic analysis का और क्या significance है anthropology में? One is to compare the species also. Okay, so the karyotype of one species will be different from the karyotype of another species. Human karyotype you will always find 23 pairs of chromosome. Chimpanzee में we find 24 pairs of chromosome, and evolutionary study says that कि 2 pairs of chromosome combine to create a single pair, and that is there in human. तो जो हमारे common ancestor थे हमारे और chimpanzee के, उनके पास 24 pairs of chromosome थे. And in that actually 2 of them combine together to create one, and that's why humans they have 23 pairs and chimpanzees still have 24 pairs of chromosome. So interspecies comparison के लिए भी karyotype analysis can help. Okay. So next question, urbanization and its impact on family. So here first thing is define urbanization. What is urbanization? Mainly you can say that whenever the population density of a particular area increases with the population shifting towards non-agricultural occupation, it is called as urbanization. पहला population density बढ़ना, दूसरा non-agriculture occupations की तरफ majority population को shift करना. So it can be by 2 ways. पहला people moving towards city, तो rural से urban migration हो रहा है, और second expansion of urban area. So अर्बन एरिया ही एक्सपैंड कर, पीपल कहीं नहीं मूव कर रहे, जो पहले गांव था वो आज शहर बन गया. ओके, दैट इज द सेकंड वे. सो 2 ways. Then you can talk about the changes that will happen due to urbanization. So first scholar you can talk about Ferdinand Tönnies, Gemeinschaft to Gesellschaft. So Gemeinschaft is the type of society that exists in the rural area. So it is the case like association exists करता है यहाँ पे, towards, sorry, what exists is community, form of society existing in Gemeinschaft rural area, towards kind of voluntary associations in the urban area, Gemeinschaft to Gesellschaft, and then changes in the family. You can talk about three major aspects of the changes. The first major change will be structure and size of the family. Okay, here you can quote the scholars like Milton Singer's study of Chennai, and then B.P. Agarwal study of Marwari families in Maharashtra, Mumbai. Okay, and then various other scholars who have given the study of families in different places. Okay, then you can talk about the changes in the function of the family. To Talcott Parson का idea बता सकते हो कि that how the families have become macroscopically functionless. Only two major functions are there, that is basic personality formation and second stabilization of adult personality. बाकी सारे functions उन्होंने outsource कर दिए हैं because of various institutions coming up like crèche आ गया, hospital आ गया, old age homes आ गए, and that's why the functions of the family have reduced significantly as per Talcott Parson. So the changes that is happening due to urbanization. Then you can talk about authority structure in the family. So from a large male headed family, the society or the family is becoming more nuclear and also kind of egalitarian, in which the female are taking equal participation in the decision making. Okay, so that is what you can mention. And then some specific type of families coming up due to urbanization you will find is skip generation families or matrifocal families. Single mother family or skip generation means दादा और बच्चे रह रहे हैं, पोते रह रहे हैं, पोते पोतियां रह रहे हैं, बाकी husband and wife they both are working in different cities. So that is a skip generation family. So these are some of the cases that you can write. Quote some data from an FHS 5 or census, and that will be your answer. Okay, then comes the question. Acha, please address the unit of syllabus where every question belongs to. अरे अभी देखा, सही बोला आपने, करना चाहिए था. Next one, field work and the problems associated with field work. So this is from unit 8. So here you can define what is field work, explain some basic features related to field work, and then pick up the heading. What are the major problems? Mainly the problems related to the time, second the cost, ये तो सबसे basic problem है. Then the third major problem is what is called as Hawthorne's effect. Hawthorne's effect simply refers to कि आपके सामने कोई आके आपको observe करने लग जाए, आपका behavior change हो जाएगा. And then when an outsider comes and starts studying somebody, so this is their original behavior might change. That is what is called as Hawthorne's effect. Okay, and then other problem is like absence of role of an outsider. अगर बाहर वाले को कोई role ही ना मिले in that particular society, what will he do? Then the problem is researcher's bias. Okay, so and then power dynamics in the field work. जो आपको study कर रहा है, most chances है that person has a power equation over you, and that's why the research will also be reflecting that power equation, and that's the power dynamics in the field work. Now major problems, you can also highlight ethical problems in the field work. Say consent है या नहीं है, utility of knowledge whether it is there or not. Okay, what kind of opinions included, so whether it is by etic approach या फिर insiders view ले रहे हैं, etic or emic approach that is there. So all such kind of ethical concerns related to field work, and then solution for these challenges. What are the problems? Solution. So first is reflexivity करो. The researcher should be aware about his own bias, okay, and how this bias would have impacted his own study. Reflexivity. Then you can talk about culture relativism to be followed, and then triangulation of data or the process of triangulation that can be there. Triangulation का मतलब क्या होता है? That is to collect data from multiple sources and multiple theoretical approaches से understand करना उसको. So there can be data triangulation in the sense by कि आपने quantitative and qualitative data दोनों लिया. Then say researcher triangulation can also happen, that is multiple people are involved in the research and they are collecting independent data, and then हर data अगर same analysis दे रहा है तो फिर उस केस में the idea is कि मतलब जो कोई भी bias नहीं है, and then there can be theoretical triangulation, that means अलग अलग theoretical approach से उस data को analyze किया जा रहा है. Okay, so that is the triangulation of data. This can solve a lot of problem related to field work. Okay, so this is something that can be written. Then the next question, ये रूथ बेनेडिक्ट का एक सवाल है, एंड ये बस थोड़ा सा फ्रेम किया है, डिफिकल्ट है कुछ नहीं. Directly, the question is critically discuss the characteristics of the psychological types in the cultures of American Southwest as observed by Ruth Benedict. Now, it simply is asking about Ruth Benedict approach in Culture Personality School, specifically in the book Patterns of Culture, in which she has compared three societies, Zuni, Dobu and Kwakiut. And the question is specifically asking about the Zuni. तो आपको कुछ नहीं करना है, to just explain Ruth Benedict approach of culture personality, which is called as configurationist approach, in which he says that there are several traits. These traits come together and form complexes, and these complexes, when they are arranged in a particular manner, it creates what is called as pattern. Now these patterns reflect the value of the arrangement, and finally the overall picture that comes up, the final picture, that is what is called as configuration. So जैसे कि ये टीवी है, that is the configuration, पर इसके पीछे बहुत सारे parts हैं जो एक particular तरीके से arranged हैं, and the final appearance, that is the configuration. Now what creates this pattern, what brings all the elements of the culture together, is the underlying values that connect them. That is the basis of interaction, and these underlying values are called as special geniuses. And these special genius will be seen in all the aspects of culture, and इसी वजह से वो सब unite हो जाते हैं. And that is, these special genius are of two types, Apollonian and Dionysian. So उन्होंने फिर patterns of culture में तीन societies को compare किया. The first one being Zuni. So Zunis basically are the Pueblos of Mexico region. Okay, and आप इनके बारे में बता सकते हो. And then Kwakiut are also southwest वाले हैं, अमेरिका वाले, so you can talk about them. Dobus also basically. So ये तीनों societies के बारे में mainly बात कर रहे हैं वो. And then आप बताओ कि Zuni में Apollonian genius है and how it is reflected in their culture. Now this Apollonian genius, or what genius is, she is saying that कि ये temperament है of every individual in the society, and based on this temperament the choices of the cultural elements are determined. So आपको अगर temperament में Apollonian genius है तो आप जो choose करोगे, that is the elements of culture that you will practice will reflect that Apollonian genius, as if कि आपकी personality थोड़ी calm है, compose है, तो आपके elements of culture भी वैसे ही होंगे. So he saying, she saying that कि Zunis में you will find that the conflict is not present, society is relatively calm, composed, and then they do not emphasize much on individuals say importance. So they always try to undermine the individuality in that kind of society. So there is no leadership, even there is no doctor, there is a society of doctors, because nobody wants to be standing out, and society is relatively egalitarian. So she makes a statement that in a presence in a conflict is problematic, even if the right is on your side. अगर आप सही भी हो तो भी conflict में होना ही अपने आप में बड़ी बात है यहाँ पे. So that is the case of Zuni. And then Dobu. So अच्छा एक चीज और बता सकते हैं कि ये डेटा इन्होंने रूथ बेंजिल और खुद से यहाँ पे फील्ड वर्क किया था. Then Dobu, Sorcerers of Dobu. So that data was taken from Rio Fortune, and in which she highlighted the presence of Dionysian genius. तो उनकी पर्सनालिटी में जो ट्रेट्स है, कॉन्फ्लिक्टिंग है, कम्बैटिव है, सीक्रेटिव है, ट्रेचरस है. So that kind of personality traits are there, and that is there in their cultural practices. Like magic is to cause harm, they do not trust, they want to steal. So stealing is the virtue, and anybody, the ideal is the one who has harmed others and have benefited from them. तो अगर आपने बहुत ज्यादा मर्डर किए हैं, बहुत ज्यादा चोरी की है, तो वहां पे आप आइडियल हो. Okay, so people will appreciate you. So that is the case of Dionysian genius, Dobu, and then finally the quack youth that she has talked about. She says that they are megalomaniacs. That means Dionysian genius. और वहां पे cultural practice जो इसको reflect करती है, that is potlatch. Okay, so that is the three societies that you have to talk in the pattern of culture in this question. Criticism बता सकते हो. Critically analysis पूछा है, तो that is restricting the temperament only to two types, that is either Apollonian or Dionysian. And then she has been criticized for overlooking the discordant elements in Zuni. मतलब सोसाइटी को ओवर हार्मोनियस दिखाने के चक्कर में उनके जो कन्फ्लिक्ट है वो इग्नोर कर दिए. Okay, so these are some of the criticism that can be mentioned. Okay, then the question is Acheulean and Oldowan tool technology. Now these are the tool technology associated with lower Paleolithic culture. Okay, आपको ये बताना है कि tool technology associated with lower Paleolithic इंडिया में पूछा है. तो Oldowan क्या है? Chopper and chopping tools. Okay, and then Acheulean. So Acheulean में you will find that it is hand axe and cleavers. तो difference क्या है Acheulean और Oldowan में? So these are both core stone technology, मतलब core tool technology. That means एक बड़ा पत्थर लेंगे, उसमें कुछ modification करेंगे और बड़े पत्थर को ही tool बना के use करेंगे. But Oldowan में क्या होता है कि that is the edge, they might be flaked. But Acheulean में you will find that the entire core tool is flaked. पूरे core tool की ही flaking होती है, and यहाँ पे it takes more effort and it is relatively sharper, precise and lighter. That is Acheulean. अब आपको Oldowan मिलेगा sown culture में. So यहाँ पे sown culture बताना था. Simply lower Paleolithic culture के बारे में सवाल पूछा है आपसे. Okay, तो आपको Oldowan मिल रहा है sown culture में. You will find traits of Acheulean in Narmada, that is the middle say India, or then the Madrasian culture. So that is what has to be mentioned here. Okay, so this is the fourth B. Then fourth C, that is heritability and its estimation. Sorry? Oh, very sorry यार. Genetic counseling, very sorry. Genetic counseling. मैं एक बार चेक भी कर रहा था, आप लोग ध्यान दे रहे हो कि नहीं दे. Genetic counseling and its significance. Simply define करना genetic counseling, that is conveying the information related to the genetic health of a population in a manner that is useful to them. That is simply the genetic counseling. Steps क्या होंगे उसमें? पहले data collection through genetic screening. Then second is analysis of data or arrangement of data, and then interpretation of data, and finally communication of data or presentation of data. These are the four major steps. Okay. Now what is the significance of this? So first one, informed decision making में help करेगा कि pregnancies को लेके chances of genetic disease कितनी ज़्यादा हैं, that can be then second is can give a data about the health, genetic health of a population, then can actually save the family from some kind of unexpected health expenditure, okay, can save them from poverty, can improvise their economic conditions, and then improvises the genetic load of a particular society, okay. So these are the significances. Then you can mention there are certain problems related to it. One is the case of mistaken paternity. अगर वहाँ पे आपके पास data available नहीं है, societies में strict sexual rules नहीं है, then there is a case of mistaken paternity, okay. Second major problem is false or erroneous interpretation of data, and then genetic counseling in delayed occurring of diseases. कोई disease है जो 40 साल के बाद होने वाली है, okay, या 45 साल के बाद होने वाली है, say Parkinson's disease, okay, and अभी आपको जेनेटिक काउंसलिंग में बता दिया कि भाई आपको ये बीमारी है, आपको ये जीन है और जिसकी वजह से आपको पार्किंसन हो जाएगा, तो जो 40 साल की उम्र है वो भी बेकार चली जाएगी कि टेंशन में कि 40 साल बाद मेरे को ये बीमारी होने वाली है, ओके. एंड देन द कॉस्ट ऑफ दिस स्क्रीनिंग एंड काउंसलिंग, एंड देन देयर इज वन एथिकल प्रॉब्लम रिलेटेड टू इट दैट इट माइट प्रमोट नियो यूजेनिक्स. एक तरीके से सिलेक्शन, एक स्टिग्मेटाइजेशन शुरू कर देगा, एक तरीके का डिस्क्रिमिनेशन बेस्ड ऑन जेनेटिक कॉम्पोजिशन ऑफ एन इंडिविजुअल माइट स्टार्ट, okay. Confidentiality अगर नहीं होगी, it might promote a movement of neo eugenics, okay. So that can be mentioned. Then you can mention some of the examples of genetic screening and counseling projects that are being done all across the world, maybe in India also. For example, I told you the case of alpha thalassemia project of Gujarat, Indian government का भी ये genetic screening और counseling पे based है. Then Odisha में भी the genetic screening counseling projects are going on to remove hemoglobinopathies, okay. And then you can talk about Ashkenazi Jews, उनका एक project है that is called as J-Screen and NJF. So sorry, NGF. So about Ashkenazi Jews, so these are a Jew population in America, and इनमें inbreeding की वजह से there is high increase of or high rise of recessive genetic disorders, homozygosity बहुत ज़्यादा high है, and ये projects they are working there for genetic screening, genetic counseling, and trying to improvise their genetic load or reducing their genetic burden, okay. Then fifth है chronometric dating. Absolute dating method के बारे में पूछा है. Chrono means time, metric means something that can be measured. So measurement of time, dating में so radiocarbon dating, potassium argon dating, uranium dating method, say electron spin resonance method, or maybe molecular screening, that is genetic dating से you can identify the age of a remain. So simply ये सब बताना था. Cultural relevance of Kula. So Kula ring ceremony. Mention कि this was mentioned by Malinowski in his book Argonauts of Western Pacific, in which he described. So what Kula is. So you can talk about the exchange of two objects, Mawali, Sulava, one which actually travels in the anti-clockwise direction, that is Mawali, Sulava actually moves in the clockwise direction. And इसके significances क्या हैं या cultural relevance क्या है? First is economic relevance क्या है? So trade relationship establish करता है across the people situated on different islands, okay. Then इसका दूसरा relation है economic aspect है कि एक अपने ही island में a lot of people get their jobs. Say boat making is related to it, then magicians are related to it, and a lot of other peoples, they basically are engaged directly or indirectly in the economic relationship done established by Kula, okay. Then you can talk about social aspects. So social aspects में social network is being created across the people situated on different islands in that region, ठीक है. तो हर किसी का कुला पार्टनर है जो बेसिकली उसको प्रोटेक्शन देगा अगेंस्ट द स्पिरिट, अगेंस्ट अदर ह्यूमंस, and that is the social aspect. And then social aspects in the island itself कि family relationship create हो रहे हैं, family relationship intact हैं in societies में. So these society, the Tobrianders, they are matrilineal and patrilocal societies. So a man usually does not goes to Kula with his son, usually goes to Kula with his nephews, अपनी बहन के बच्चों के साथ जाता है. And by this Kula, these family bonds are kept intact in a matrilineal society which is patrilocal, okay. So that is the social bonds. And then you can also talk about the political relevance of Kula. So basically chief sponsors the Kula, and his chief जब sponsor करेगा Kula को, तो how does it impact his status? it actually maintains the status quo, it elevates its status in some way or the other, जो sponsoring कर रहा है, okay, and then anybody who participates in the Kula is basically rising up in the social status in the society, possessing or disposition of these Kula objects, they are very considered to be a symbol of status. So this is the relevance of Kula in so 10 mark question है, it's more than enough, इस पे लिख सकते हैं. Then the question, heritability and estimation, its estimation. सबको लगा कि ये जेनेटिक्स का सवाल आ गया और इसमें प्रॉपरली कैलकुलेशन करनी पड़ेगी, बट एकदम स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन है. हेरिटेबिलिटी क्या है? दैट percentage of variation that is because of genetic differences, that is what is called as heritability. So for example, your height, so say my height is 6 foot and your height is say 6'4", तो उस केस में जो हमारे डिफरेंस है say 4 इंच का जो डिफरेंस है, how much of this difference is because of the genetic difference that we have, that is what is called as heritability. इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि that ये उस फैक्टर को जीन्स कितना डिटरमाइन करें, that is not the case, but how much of variation of a trait in a population is because of the genetic differences, that is what is called as heritability. Now the formula for determining heritability is Vg divided by Vp, that is variation in phenotype and Vg is variation due to genes or genetic differences, that is, और Vp की वैल्यू होती है Vg plus Ve. Variation in phenotype may be because of genes or may be because of differences of environment. So Vg divided by Vp is the heritability of a population. Okay. Now a heritability of a particular trait in a population. So for example, heritability of height is 0.8 on an average. That means in a population, variation in height is mainly because of variation in the genetics. Okay, क्योंकि population में environment more or less similar होगा, and that's why majority of the variation in the height is mainly because of genetic differences. Okay, so that is heritability of height. Now how it is calculated? We follow certain methods like twin study, foster child method. So इससे हम लोग heritability calculate करते हैं. You can mention some of the examples of heritability of IQ that was done by Eric Turkheimer or foster child method, Chicago studies and all that can be mentioned in this. Okay, I can see your faces, बहुत सारे foundation वाले आप लोग पहली बार ये सब सुन रहे हो. अभी हम लोग ये physical anthropology में देखेंगे, don't worry. Next, authority and forms of political organization. So this question, authority, what is authority? Any type of power that is legitimate, that is what is called as authority. Okay, and according to Max Weber there are 3 types of authority or 3 sources of authority: charismatic, traditional and rational legal authority. Okay, now you can say that ki different types of authority are present in different kinds of political organization. Political organization kya hai? That is form of distribution of power in a society or how power is distributed. Okay, so for example, different political organization like band, what kind of authority it will be there? So it is informal and usually charismatic. जो सबसे बूढ़ा आदमी होगा और जो सबसे अच्छा स्टोरी टेलर होगा, कहानी खोर आदमी, वो वहां पे लीडर बनता है. Okay, that is charismatic authority. He has the power to attract a lot of people. Okay, then tribe में what kind of authority? Usually informal and it is charismatic plus traditional. Okay, so usually kin based, lineage based authorities होती हैं and that is traditional kind of authority or charismatic in the case of like big man societies. You will find that it's a charismatic type of authority जो बहुत बड़ा feast organize करा रहा है, अच्छी भाषण दे पा रहा है and it's able to attract a lot of followers. And then chiefdom में it is traditional authority. Okay, the chief, he is supposed to have highest amount of mana and that's why considered to be the most superior one of all. And then it's also in some cases rational legal authority is also there. The chiefdom is a well established post, formal post hai, and one who succeeds basically becomes the chief and he is considered to be the most senior person. And then state. So state mein you will find rational legal authority, but in some cases when the state is in a crisis, you will find the rise of charismatic authority. So Max Weber ने बोला था कि charismatic सबसे oldest है, and as there is modernization there will be rise in rational legal authority. But ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है कि charismatic गायब हो जाएगी. Whenever the state is in crisis, there will be rise of charismatic authority. So one very good example is Hitler and the rise of Hitler in Germany. Charismatic authority थी, उसके पास ना rational legal authority थी, but it was charismatic in nature. Okay, तो जर्मनी को जब World War I के बाद Treaty of Versailles के बाद बहुत ज़्यादा problem हुई, तो then rise of Hitler. Okay, so this is something that can be written. Next question, single gene mutation. And the disease is related to it, that is the question. Simple सा question है कि mutation को आपको define करना है. Any random change in genetic composition of an individual. Okay, that is what is called as mutation. Now single gene mutation usually can be of small scale. आप बता सकते हो कि either it can be point mutation or it can be a frame shift mutation. Now point mutation के एक बहुत अच्छा example है, that is sickle cell. So एक single base actually gets replaced. Okay, so sickle cell anemia और जो sickle cell gene है, that is hemoglobin वाले gene में एक बस base change हो जाएगा, A replaced by T. Okay, and then आप देखोगे कि उसकी वजह से what actually happens कि that the entire एक particular जो amino acid है that actually gets changed, codon बदल जाएगा, and that's how the amino acid changes, and due to which this sickle cell protein और hemoglobin is basically formed. Okay, frame shift की वजह से वो पूरा का पूरा एक बेस ऐड हो रहा है या एक बेस डिलीट हो रहा है और वो सारे कोडॉन्स को इंपैक्ट कर देगा, जिसकी वजह से वो जीन यूजलेस हो जाता है. That is what is called as single cell frame shift mutation. Then you can also mention some of the examples of single gene mutations and disease like Huntington disease, autosomal dominant है. Then phenylketonuria, sickle cell we have seen, recessive disorders है, cystic fibrosis. अब ये सब डिजीज हम लोग नॉर्मली भी पढ़ ही रहे हैं वहां पे. ओके, कि एक सिंगल सेल म्यूटेशन की वजह से हुआ है, सिंगल जीन म्यूटेशन की वजह से, एंड देन यू जस्ट हैव टू एक्सप्लेन कि हंटिंगटन डिजीज फॉर एग्जांपल क्रोमोसोम नंबर 4 में एक डोमिनेंट एक सिंगल म्यूटेशन होगा एंड देन एक जीन म्यूटेट होगा एंड देन फाइनली ऑटोसोमल डोमिनेंट डिसऑर्डर है. फिनाइलकीटोनुरिया क्रोमोसोम नंबर 12 के एक जीन में म्यूटेशन है, दैट्स ए रिसेसिव डिसऑर्डर. सिस्टिक फाइब्रोसिस क्रोमोसोम नंबर 7 में एक म्यूटेशन है एंड देन एक रिसेसिव डिसऑर्डर है. ओके, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, होमो इरेक्टस, सीधा सीधा सवाल है. ज्योग्राफिकल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, फिजिकल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स एंड फाइलोजेनी पूछा है उसके बारे में. ज्यादा कुछ मतलब टिपिकल सवाल नहीं है इसमें, कुछ बताने लायक. देन फोरेंसिक एंथ्रोपोलॉजी एंड इट्स एप्लीकेशन. सो डिफाइन फोरेंसिक एंथ्रो. What is forensic anthropology? Use of anthropological knowledge or physical anthropological knowledge for the study of for rational legal purpose or say medico legal purposes. That is what is called as forensic anthropology. Then what are the major application? So basically identity of the victim. Second, basically time of death to identify करना. Then interpretation of injuries, and finally facial reconstruction. And last one, say identification of culprit. ठीक है, by using fingerprint and various other analysis, semen analysis, DNA analysis and all. So what are the tools and techniques that are used? Osteology, bone interpretation, dental analysis, dental pattern analysis, DNA or genetic analysis, DNA fingerprinting and various other mechanisms, and then the last one that is simply fingerprints. यार ये कैसे बोल सकता था? Fingerprints. Okay, so these are the major features. Sorry, tools and techniques that can be used in forensic anthropology. और उसके कुछ example आप बता सकते हैं. An Asahani Tandoor case. Okay, identity of the victim, the body was butchered up, facial और वो उसको तंदूर में डाल दिया गया था. And then हिटलर के केस में the house of Hitler and his wife was burnt and finally उसके dental pattern से plus एक सोने का दांत था, उससे basically analyze किया गया कि finally it was concluded that Hitler is dead, he was burnt in the house. Okay, then Nithari case, facial reconstruction, जहाँ पे say basically the skulls of children that were abducted they were found and चंडीगढ़ में भेजा गया facial reconstruction के लिए. Okay, so all this can be mentioned. 9/11 case जहाँ पे basically the body of victims were sent to the respective household basically by using forensic anthropology. Okay, then the next question, that is 6C, that is related to Asdival myth. अब ये question थोड़ा सा out of the box है because normally Asdival myth मतलब I am not talking about my class but Asdival myth discuss नहीं करते हैं. Okay, so we do discuss structural analysis of myth but we usually do not discuss Asdival myth as such. But fortunately it's like discuss in my class, मैं ये myth को discuss जरूर करता हूँ. So it's a myth related to a hero that is Asdival and वो उनके कुछ journey है and in this myth he talks about 4 major aspects of this myth in which the binary opposites are visible. For example, the first aspect is cosmological aspect of the myth in which he talks about 2 worlds, the earth and the heaven. So Asdival जो है वो sun god की बेटी से शादी कर लेता है and then he basically starts living with the daughter of sun god. So 2 words की बात करें, binary opposites. Then geographical aspects in which he talks about east or west, land and sea, इस तरीके के binary opposites की बात करते हैं. And then sociological aspects in which he talks about patrilocal residence versus matrilocal residence. So इस story में एक part है जो beginning है, that is Asdival, mother and her daughter meet at a common place moving from their own village. मतलब ये बता रहा है कि mother और daughter एक साथ नहीं रह रही हैं, मतलब that's a patrilocal kind of residence कि शादी के बाद daughter has left the mother. Okay, and then Asdival शादी के बाद अपनी wife के साथ रहता है in the place of sun god, in the house of sun god. That's a kind of matrilocal residence. So that is the 2 opposites talked about in this myth. And then techno-economic binary opposite, he talks about surplus and deficit. So in the beginning of the myth, ये mother and the daughter जब मिलते हैं तो उनके पास खाने को कुछ नहीं होता है, and then there is a bird that comes and he gives them a lot of things to eat and eventually desires a son from the daughter, and that is how when the bird mates with that woman, the hero of this story Asdival is born. Okay, so this is a condition of deficit शुरुआत में, but later on when the Asdival leaves the house of sun god and wants to come to earth, he comes with a basket of inexhaustible goods. मतलब वो ऐसा basket है जिसमें कभी सामान खत्म ही नहीं होगा. Okay, that's a case of surplus. So he talks about this economic binary opposites of surplus and deficit in the mythology. So he is trying to locate this binary opposites in the myths of Asdival. We इतना time नहीं है कि मैं ये पूरी myth discuss कर सकूं. But even if you do not know Asdival myth, the structural analysis of myth would have sufficed for this answer. At least 50% of the answer could be written अगर आपको किसी तरीके से ये question choose करना पड़ा हो. So simply you can say that कि Levi-Strauss argues that myth is made up of units called as mythemes, and the meanings of, say, the mythemes meaning is created because of their arrangement with respect to each other. Okay, so there is no single उसने myth को language से compare किया and structural linguistics को use करके. For example, if I say this is 8, but what is this? Is it height? No, it is height. Are you getting this? So then it should be fight. No, it's not fight. Fight is this. So that means every object is occupying meaning only with respect to किसके साथ कैसे अरेंज हो रहा है. 8 सिंगल है तो ऐसे बोल रहे हैं, अब H आ गया उसके बाहर तो उसको हाइट बोलेंगे, बट फाइट के लिए इट्स नॉट FEIGST, इट इज FIGST. ओके, सो दैट मीन्स सिंगुलरली किसी ऑब्जेक्ट की कोई मीनिंग नहीं है अपने आप में. एवरी ऑब्जेक्ट ऑक्यूपाइज मीनिंग इन ए स्ट्रक्चर ओनली विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द अदर ऑब्जेक्ट. सो सोशल स्ट्रक्चर में वो कैसे दिखता है, लाइक आई एम ए टीचर, ऐसे थोड़ी ना कि आई एम ए टीचर टू एवरीवन. आई एम ए टीचर ओनली विद रिस्पेक्ट टू माय स्टूडेंट, आई एम ए फादर ओनली विद रिस्पेक्ट टू माय डॉटर, और आई एम ए ब्रदर ओनली विद रिस्पेक्ट टू माय ब्रदर एंड ए सन टू माय फादर. ओके, सो इंडिविजुअली आप कुछ मीन नहीं करते, यू मीन समथिंग टू समवन. In the same way, language में भी every unit means something only with respect to something. Okay, and myth में भी ऐसा ही होता है, that unit of myth, my themes, make meaning only with respect to the other units of the myth. Okay, so break this myth into my themes, identify their arrangement pattern, and then you will be understanding the structure of that myth. Okay, so he says that कि हो सकता है कि बहुत सारी मिथ्स हैं ऑल अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड, दे माइट हैव सेम माई थीम्स, बट जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ देयर अरेंजमेंट यू माइट फील दैट द स्टोरी इज डिफरेंट. तो सारी जैसे मूवीज है आप देखोगे कि उनके यूनिट्स एक ही जैसे हैं, बट उनकी अरेंजमेंट अलग होने की वजह से आपको सब मूवी अलग अलग दिखती है. ओके, इतनी सारी मूवीज हैं, सब में ऐसा ही होगा कि लव स्टोरीज हैं, लेकिन हर लव स्टोरी अलग क्यों है? जस्ट बिकॉज यूनिट्स अलग तरीके से अरेंज है, क्रोनोलॉजी अलग है. ओके, एंड दैट इज ही इज सेइंग दैट कि myth is just like language created of the items called as my themes. Language की units हैं phonemes. Okay, and my themes, because of their arrangement and rearrangement, they create a distinct meaning. Yet what he says that since our brain thinks in the form of binary opposite, you will find that almost every my theme is across the world, they are very much similar. What is different is arrangement and rearrangement. So myth maker arranges and rearranges to create different meanings. And when you analyze the arrangement and rearrangement, it will reflect the pattern of human thinking, that is binary opposite. तो कुछ अच्छा हो रहा है तो उसके बाद कुछ sad होगा, कुछ surplus होगा तो उसके बाद कुछ deficit आएगा, और मे भी कुछ nature के related है तो कुछ culture आएगा, and that is how the binary opposite will be reflected in the arrangement of the my themes. Okay, and then he says that since our thinking capacity is very much limited, in that case we are able to create only limited number of binary opposites, and that's why two myths which might look to be variations, two myths which might look different from each other can be said to be the variation of each other, and that is how we can prove it by arranging these elements. Positive से negative को बदल दो, male को female से replace कर दो, reverse the order of the events, and that's how you can show that two myths are variations of each other. And he talks about Ash Boy and Cinderella. एंड यहाँ पे भी उन्होंने वही बताया कि कैसे हमारी जो एलिमेंट्स इन द मिथ्स दे आर एक्चुअली रिप्रेजेंटिंग द बाइनरी ऑपोजिट्स ऑफ अर्थ हेवन, ईस्ट वेस्ट, लैंड सी, पेट्रीलोकल, मेट्रीलोकल, सरप्लस एंड डेफिसिट. ओके, देन पोस्टमॉडर्निज्म एंड डेरिडा. किसी ने लिखा है सर AIR1 2017 नीट. Postmodernism and Derrida. So simply define what is postmodernism. Okay, that it believes that there is no absolute reality and truth is what is socially agreed upon and it's dynamic in nature. Okay, so reality is inconceivable. That is what postmodernism suggests that, and then it rejects the grand narratives or grand theories that are there in anthropology, and it also says that objectivity or 100% objectivity is an illusion, वो possible ही नहीं है. And then it also talks about the power dynamics that is involved in the research of anthropology. So basic idea of postmodernism, and then the explanation by Jacques Derrida. So Jacques Derrida ने एक concept दिया that is called as deconstruction. Now what is this deconstruction? He says that we should avoid excessive loyalty to a single idea. That means जब आप एक theory, एक particular idea को 100% loyalty दे देते हो, तो what you do is you ignore the merits in the opposite idea. एंड दैट एक्चुअली इज अ रिफ्लेक्शन ऑफ पावर इक्वेशन। तो आपने स्ट्रक्चर फंक्शन से एक सोसाइटी को समझ लिया, तो उसके बाद आप बाकी एनालिसिस को इग्नोर कर दे रहे हो। ओके, यू माइट नॉट you have understood a particular idea to be correct and then you are ignoring it, ignoring the values of the opposite idea। and कई बार आप किसी वैल्यू को बहुत ज्यादा पावर दे देते हो, से फॉर एग्जांपल साइंस को पावर दे देते हो ओवर ह्यूमैनिटीज। ओके, एंड देन यू बेसिकली इग्नोर द वैल्यू ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटीज, और आप ऑब्जेक्टिविटी को पावर दे देते हो ओवर सब्जेक्टिविटी, देन यू इग्नोर द पावर ऑफ सब्जेक्टिविटी। ओके, आप बोलते हो कि ऑब्जेक्टिविटी सब फैक्ट्स होना चाहिए विदाउट एनी इमोशन, but you cannot be objective every time, at some cases you have to be subjective। for example, being an IAS officer, आपके पास कोई बूढ़ी आ गई एंड आपको पता है कि भाई ये इसको हेल्थ केयर की जरूरत है, इसको घर की जरूरत है, बट शी इज नॉट हैविंग ऑल द डॉक्यूमेंट्स। उस केस में you cannot just go on objectivity कि भाई ऑब्जेक्टिविटी इज ऑलवेज सुपीरियर देन सब्जेक्टिविटी, नो, और से इक्वालिटी इज ऑलवेज सुपीरियर और बेटर देन इनइक्वालिटी। तो आप जब बोलोगे कि इक्वालिटी, कई जगह पे इनइक्वालिटी इज मोर बेटर। ओके, फॉर एग्जाम्पल आपके सोसाइटी में, सॉरी आपके कॉर्पोरेशन में, व्हेन यू बिकम एन IAS ऑफिसर, सो उस केस में अगर आपका जो PN है वो भी आपके साथ डिसीजन मेकिंग में पार्टिसिपेट करे, तो विल द ऑफिस फंक्शन? तो आपको बार बार PN को बुला के बिठाना पड़ेगा कि साहब बताइए कि इस केस में करना क्या चाहिए। एंड दैट्स व्हाई deconstruction is avoiding excessive loyalty towards any particular idea in order to see the merit in the opposite idea। and deconstruction of a text means कि आप किसी टेक्स्ट को एनालाइज कर रहे हो जस्ट टू फाइंड द हिडन लॉयल्टीज टू अ पर्टिकुलर आइडिया। ओके, कि व्हाट वाज गोइंग ऑन इन द माइंड ऑफ द राइटर, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ आइडिया इज बीइंग प्रोजेक्टेड टू बी सुपीरियर देन द अदर। सो आपने कोई टेक्स्ट को डिकंस्ट्रक्ट किया पोस्ट मॉडर्निज्म में, तो यू विल बी चेकिंग कि ये जो ऑथर है, हाउ ही इज एक्चुअली influenced by a particular idea and how that particular idea has dominated this text। so you are reading not the text but the mind of the writer of that text। so that is what is called as the deconstruction of the text। okay, कि what was going on in the mind of that person, and इसकी वजह से उसने बहुत opposite ideas के merit को ignore कर दिया। so structure functionist में आप देखोगे कि how the stability of the society is kind of prioritized and बाकी conflict को ignore किया गया। okay, so that is what is called as deconstruction। and based on this deconstruction he suggested that the idea of aporia, he says that the human mind is basically craving for, or it's actually having a disease of assuming that behind every problem lies a need solution, and this craving for this need solution actually makes us think that कि भाई confusion is a state of weak mind। और आप कंफ्यूजन जब आप एक्सेप्ट नहीं करना चाहते तो आप क्लैरिटी को प्रायोरिटाइज कर रहे हो, बट कंफ्यूजन में भी कुछ मेरिट्स हैं। ओके, बट सिंस यू डू नॉट वांट कंफ्यूजन, यू वांट क्लैरिटी, यू माइट गिव सम अननेसेसरी सॉल्यूशंस टू, मतलब आप किसी भी तरीके से उस चीज को जस्टिफाई करके समझ के अपने हिसाब से एक्सेप्ट कर लेते हो। एंड हियर ही सेज दैट कि वी शुड अप्रिशिएट द स्टेट ऑफ कंफ्यूजन, एंड दिस स्टेट ऑफ कंफ्यूजन ही कॉल्स इट एज अपोरिया। एंड ही सेज दैट वी शुड रीविजिट दिस स्टेट ऑफ कंफ्यूजन बिकॉज इन दिस कंडीशन we are open to multiple ideas, we are open to all the ideas, and then लेकिन जब आप क्लियर हो गए तो उस केस में आप अपने ब्रेन को शट डाउन कर देते हो, मतलब आपने एक आइडिया को प्रायोरिटाइज कर दिया कि भाई यही सही है, एंड आप बाकी सारे आइडियाज, बाकी सारे इंटरप्रिटेशंस को यू आर इग्नोरिंग इट, एंड दैट इज अपोरिया, एन एक्सटेंशन ऑफ deconstruction, saying that aporia is a state of a mature mind and we should always revisit this state of aporia। and then he also criticized the idea of logocentrism, कि हमें लॉजिक से बहुत प्यार है, एंड सिंस वी लव लॉजिक वी गिव लॉजिक, एनी काइंड ऑफ लॉजिक, उसकी वैलिडिटी वगैरह चेक नहीं करते हैं, एंड वी शुड मूव अवे फ्रॉम लोगोसेंट्रिसिज्म टुवर्ड्स state of aporia। we should be confused, rightly confused। okay, so this is the idea of deconstruction by Derrida। then the next one, multifactorial features। so it's simply asking polygenic traits, multiple genes से जो influence होते हैं, जो environment से भी influence हो रहे हैं, and then you will find that इनका जो distribution है that is like a bell shaped curve। okay, So that is what is polygenic traits or multifactorial traits. Now one very good example is height, that is influenced by multiple genes and the environment. Then you can also talk about Rh blood group, that is influenced by 3 genes C, D and E who have an allele, that is what is called as multifactorial traits. Then the question is sampling techniques. So you can mention कि जब population बहुत ज़्यादा large होती है, voluminous data होता है, in that case not everybody could be studied, तो उस case में we take samples, okay, in the research, and it can be of different types. Quantitative data choose करने के लिए, that is random sampling, stratified sampling, area wise sampling, okay, then snowball sampling, and different examples of it will do, okay. Then the question 8A, social stratification से related question है, justification of social stratification. तो इसकी definition से you can actually mention कि the idea of social stratification, what is that? Social stratification starts with distinction, that is strata बना दिया, but second is ranking of that strata, that is inequality, and third is institutionalization of inequality. That means जब ये ranking socially acceptable हो जाए and ये generation after generation continue होने लग जाए, that is what is called as stratification, social stratification. तो मतलब क्लास को 2 हिस्सों में बांट दिया, वो stratification नहीं है, बट उनकी रैंकिंग करना और उसके बाद उस रैंकिंग को नॉर्मल बना देना, नॉर्म बना देना, दैट इज इट स्टार्ट्स टू बी एक्सेप्टेड वन आफ्टर द अदर क्लास, ऑटोमेटिकली वो एक्सेप्ट होने लग जाए, दैट इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एज social stratification. Institutionalization of inequality between the stratas of a society is social stratification, okay. Now here you just have to explain some approaches related to stratification. First one, that is functionalist approach, Davis-Moore hypothesis, how he explains the justification of or existence of social stratification. Then Weberian approach, that is Trinitarian model of social stratification. 3 फैक्टर से सोशल स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन आता है, पैसा, पावर और प्रेस्टीज, दैट इज क्लास, स्टेटस एंड पॉलिटिक्स और पावर, ओके. एंड देन यू कैन मेंशन मार्क्स theory of stratification, that is stratification comes because of economic power or means of production, and the owner of means of production, they actually control everything, or say they are the one who are superior in the society. Society is divided into 2 groups, capitalist as well as the labor class, okay. And then symbolic interactionism, so stratification society नहीं create करती, stratification हम अपने action से create करते हैं. Say basically the clothes that we wear, the products that we consume, the language that we speak, the way we talk to each other, okay, the words that we use, ये stratification create कर रहा है rather than society हम पे stratification impose कर रही है, okay. So here they are giving the agency to the individual कि individuals create this stratification. मैं अगर अपने आप को powerful मानता हूँ तो I'll show it in some way, and that is some external appearance. Maybe I will wear Gucci, Armani or something like that, or maybe the way I talk to you. So for example, अभी आज मैंने realize किया when I was coming from traffic signal, अभी कोई एक बच्चा जा रहा था, I wanted to give something to him, automatically verbatimly मेरे दिमाग word से आए ओ छोटू, okay, but I cannot use this word ओ छोटू to your son, or nobody can use this word for my son, okay, while calling him, but automatically मेरे जबान से वही निकला. Now this word that automatically states that the other person is kind of मेरे से relatively powerless है, and that's why the word that I used for him, okay. So this is symbolic interactionism. The gestures, the words, the objects that we consume create stratification, okay. So this is what has to be mentioned in this with respective criticism and the scholars of this school. Then the next one, ABO और RH ब्लड ग्रुप के ऊपर सीधा सा सवाल पूछा है. तो ABO ब्लड ग्रुप आप बता सकते हो कि दैट दिस इज ए जेनेटिक पॉलीमॉर्फिक ट्रेट, एंड इस जीन के 3 एलील्स होते हैं, IA, IB एंड IO. IA and IB are codominant, whereas IO is recessive in nature. So IA IB होगा तो AB ब्लड ग्रुप बनेगा, IA IO होगा तो A ब्लड ग्रुप बनेगा, IBIO होगा तो B ब्लड ग्रुप बनेगा, एंड दोनों साइड से अगर आ रहा है तो दैट इज O blood group. Okay, so this is the feature that we can talk about. Then RH blood group, it's a polygenic trait created out of 3 genes C, D and E, जिसके एलील होते हैं recessive C, D and E, and then a person is RH positive if he has one allele of dominant D. So if the person is DD, so this person is RH positive. Okay, and in case this, it's RH negative. Okay, so यही बताना था यहाँ पे. And then the significance and distribution of ABO blood group and RH blood group can be talked about. कि कई सारे ABO blood group से basically कुछ specific disease resistance मिलती है. So O blood group की, जैसे B blood group की infectious disease से कुछ resistance है, O blood group की कुछ अपनी resistance है, and RH blood group की भी अपनी कुछ resistance है. And one more factor, RH positive is related to increased fertility in the human beings, that can be mentioned, and that's why you will find that majority of the human population, they are RH positive. Okay, so that can be mentioned. And then the last question, it simply is talking, it's a repeat question, simply talking about the bioculture nature of human evolution, biocultural nature. So here you have to explain that how biology and culture combined created the humans. We are a project of both biological as well as cultural evolution. So कैसे आप बताओगे कि जैसे बायोलॉजी ने हमें कुछ कैपेसिटी दी, opposable thumb, bipedalism, large brain, and this gave us the capacity to make tools, discover fire, and that again shaped our biology. So tool making से आप देखोगे कि language का वो area that is related in the brain that develops, तो हमारी speech capacities बनती हैं. Then fire basically gives us softer food. Now you will see the dental pattern, the teeth become smaller, the jaw becomes smaller, and that is again the role of fire. And then fire also altered the direction of our evolution. So for example, when we moved to Europe, it was a cold place. अब अगर हम genetically evolve करते तो we would have developed Bergman's or Allen's rules के हिसाब से we would have developed subcutaneous fat in order to survive, but we had fire, and जिसकी वजह से हमें जो warmth biological evolution से मिलती वो हमें fire ने दे दी, तो हमें कुछ biologically evolve नहीं करना पड़ा. So that is, it altered the direction of our evolution. That is, so how biology impacts culture, which in turn impacts our biology. So that is what has to be written, कि there is a synthesis of biology and culture in human evolution. So that is what has to be written. आप और भी एक example है, initially Australopithecus आपने पढ़ा होगा कि that they were manual scavengers. Now manual scavengers may be scavengers, passive scavengers. So that means end में जो बचता था, say first the hunter would eat something, say hunting animal, carnivorous animal, then the other animals would eat whatever is remaining, and usually हमारे पास जो बचता था that was the bone marrows and the bone. So usually हमने जो bone marrow खाया है उसकी वजह से हमारे brain की growth हुई है. So this is a hypothesis that our brain size increased because it was a blessing in our disguise कि we consumed a lot of bone marrow, वो बाकी animals के पास capacity नहीं थी, we cracked the bone, we extracted the bone marrow, जिसकी वजह से हमारा brain growth हुआ है. Okay, so these are some of the aspects that you can discuss कि biology से culture shape हुआ and then culture shaped biology, that is the bicultural cycle of human evolution. Okay, so this is it for paper 1. We'll try to do the paper 2 analysis maybe by end of this week or maybe someday in this week only. So that's it for today. Thank you so much. It was nice interacting with you, all of you.